And welcome back to Rodney and Alfie Talk Metal. And I am Alfie Williams. You will find me on YouTube at Witchbase. And my co-host, my lovely co-host, who is busy painting his lovely studio. Rodney, how you doing, Rodney?
Doing all right. Rodney McGee. You can find me on YouTube as well for the time being. At Rodney McGee. It's an easy one to look up. But yeah, so we got kind of a interesting thought process going on for this one. I think I had tossed out the question to you earlier on that I've just noticed, and this was actually spurred on by someone I don't like.
So, okay.
What got me to thinking of it, and I went down a long rabbit hole, was, and I know this is totally out of character for him, but Tom Morello was doing an interview recently, and this is kind of a follow-up to what we noticed with the return of nu metal.
Yeah.
We saw this, and these bands, for the most part, what we heard, weren't moving it forward. And like I said, it was kind of synchronicity that these two things popped up, that it was thinking about trends that just seem to revisit and people thinking it's new when it's already been around, and people who seem to be unaware of a good bit of the richness of metal music history, or they're conveniently ignoring it to pretend that they're innovating. And it was actually Tom Morello coming out and basically saying Rage Against the Machine was what invented nu metal.
Oh, I heard that. I heard something like that.
Yeah, which made me do that like dog in the GIF face, like.
Actually, I heard Tim Comerford say that. He was beating on Limp Bizkit, saying if it weren't for us, there'd be no Limp Bizkit. So did Tom Morello say something like that too?
Yeah, he said he invented nu metal, and I'll get into it, but it's kind of like, well, then if you think you started that style and that invented nu metal, yeah, we got a bone to pick. So let's talk about a number of genres and things that people claim are new, but I say nay, nay.
That's right. So you messaged me yesterday or this morning. I don't know. Time zones are difficult. But you like you said, it's all just one blend of timeline. You messaged me and you said to me, like you said, trends people think are new but already happened or forgotten. So I looked at that, and with honesty, I didn't really know how to answer that apart from surface level answers. So you think of funk metal and their suicidal tendencies, Red Hot Chili Peppers to a degree, and that sort of thing. So I felt like I was very limited on how to answer that. So I took to my favorite search engine and went down my own rabbit hole. And here's how I approached it. I wondered what the general consensus of music was. So I wanted to see, what does it look like now? And is there anybody copying stuff from the past? I say copying, loosely copying. So are there any influences from the past? So here's my journey. I looked at officialcharts.com, and it says in the disclaimer, it says in the title of the website, this is compiled by the Official Charts Company, the UK's biggest rock and metal albums of the week, based on sales of digital bundles, CDs, vinyls, and other formats across a 7-day period. All good so far. Any guess what was on there?
I never read charts, so you're going to be the expert on this one.
So yes, but this is the first time I've looked at a chart for years. So this is just one website, and here we go. Number 1, Queen, and this is the last week, 7 days. Queen, Don't Stop Me Now. Number 2, Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody.
The hell is it with you English?
I'll skip number 3. I'll come back to it. Number 4, Guns N' Roses, Goo Goo Dolls, AC/DC, Queen again, AC/DC, Bon Jovi, and AC/DC again. So out of the top 40 on this list this week, there were 2 relatively new artists. Maneskin, they are the guys that won the Eurovision Song Contest, the Italian group, and they're pretty hot right now. And Machine Gun Kelly, out of the top 40. So I thought, and then the rest of the rest of the top 40 list we've been listening to for decades, Metallica and so on. I thought, this doesn't make any sense. This can't be the consensus of what is the top 40 right now. So I dug a bit deeper. So I went on to Billboard.com, right? You got to trust Billboard.com. So I guess as a guy you showed me earlier, this can all be bought. So, you know, Billboard.com, top rock and alternative songs. I got a bone to pick with this. This sort of goes back to our gatekeeping episode. None of this is rock.
All right.
None. And it certainly is an alternative in a genre sense. I don't want to go on this list, but just take my word for it. It's not rock. It's not alternative. It's not metal. So I'm going to quickly jump to the next thing here. I swear this is all related. I'm going to answer the question. I'm getting there. We can come back to this if you want, but just in the interest of time. And then where did this go? Okay, so I thought officialcharts.com, waste of time. Billboard.com, waste of time. Again, like I said, I'm still looking for current trends, and all I'm finding is nonsense. So I went to popvortex.com. And they had, but in my defense, they had top heavy metal songs, and it says we pull this data from the iTunes downloads. Okay, fine, I can live with this. Where's it gone? So the top 100 metal downloads from the iTunes store, again dated from Friday the 16th of July to Thursday the 22nd, today. Guess what I found?
Intestinal tract of a badger.
Close. Metallica, Five Finger Death Punch, Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, Tool, and Slipknot. Roughly 10% are brand new songs. The rest are all songs from years back. Of those songs, they all sounded like 2005. On one hand, there was a cookie-cutter acoustic intro with a very softly sung singer part, and then a moody 5-string bass with single notes underneath. And then on the other hand, industrial synthy noises like Machine Head or Nine Inch Nails, and so on. So you asked me, are there trends people think are new and don't think? You asked me if there are trends people think are new, and I don't think people have grown out of the 2000s yet. So no is my answer. I don't think they've realized nothing has changed in 40 years. So no, it's a roundabout answer to your question. I don't think anybody's noticed anything has changed. We've discussed new metal popping up, but for God's sake, if people are still listening to Metallica and AC/DC and Five Finger Death Punch and Slipknot, no, Rodney, they haven't found anything.
The thing I would look into, and maybe you did, I'd be curious if that was just downloads or if it included streaming, because to a huge degree, purchasing is antiquated below a certain age range. So
yes, yeah.
If that means people buying stuff that still give a crap about actually having the thing on their drive or owning a physical product, then you're probably talking about a certain age group.
Yeah.
And then that would make more sense to me. If this were streaming and included all these things, then I'd be a bit like, oh.
I guess, I mean, yeah, in the first instance, a Billboard and the official chart thing, that probably makes sense that, yeah, this is a piece of merchandise that you have on a shelf or in a collection. So, yeah, I think that's a fair argument. The iTunes one, whilst technically not streaming, they bought, as far as I'm aware, they bought these singles. So I don't know what to make of that. I've never seen the attraction of buying one track, but that's just me. I would buy an album or something. So I don't know about the streaming stuff, but I guess you have a different take on the whole idea of old trends revisiting us.
Well, yeah, we talked about last time kind of the idea that people just keep recycling and regurgitating things. what kind of struck me, though, is especially like with Morello's comment and things like that, is what I hear a lot in students and people on my channel and just general talk and things is where supposedly the innovation is going on as far as metal. And I just keep looking at them and going, you don't think you invented this, do you? like entire forms of music that are supposed to be what's pushing the new edge. And I'm going, I grew up on this shit. Like, I'm not 16, and I've heard this stuff. Like, I guess to attack the Morello thing right away, there's a much wider groove and funk-oriented rock and metal thing that happened way the hell before Rage Against the Machine. To rattle off a few, I mean, I can remember about a 5-year period in the late 80s and even into the early 90s where slap bass, funky, rocky metal thing was like ruling everything. Not to mention the fact that, I mean, and this band will pop up in both of the main genres I'll kind of take a shot at here, but let's remember Faith No More here. They did early funk and groove style things, had some slap bass going on, stuff like that. This is, I mean, the prototypic rock big anthem type of thing, with Epic. That's way before any of these bands. The Red Hot Chili Peppers being the less metal version, but they still jumped into it with, somewhat their heavier cover of like Higher Ground and Love Roller Coaster and stuff like that. But then there were bands that were kind of the second tier things like Mordred and Mindfunk and bands like this. I mean, there was a whole genre about that. And then I'm going, if you're going to the real like R&B, funk, metal crossover, ain't none of you got anything on 24/7 Spies. Period. Did this shit first. Period. I mean, they started in 86. And they're heavier than Rage. They're heavier than most of the bands that come after. You hear songs like John Connolly's Theory, New Superhero Worship, stuff like that. And they integrated the actual soul, R&B, and funk like much deeper into it. You had stuff that could have been on an Al Green album getting mixed into flat out metal. They're still kicking today. They put out an album a few years back that was just great. And I'm going, what do you mean you invented this stuff? The hell are you? And again, it was supposed to be this revolutionary thing. And I'm not trying to dump too hard on Rage, even though they're not really my thing from about 60 angles. But I feel like we've hit a cultural moment where people think that there was no history before them. And this goes to movies and things like that. Well, thank God we finally have this now. Like, do you have a rear view mirror? Because this stuff all existed before you. And it's like, oh, well, Rage Against the Machine invented this, rap, rock, funk, metal type of thing. I'm like, I got 5 guys in this band over here who'd like to have a discussion with you. And then Mindfunk. And then Mordred. And then like 50 other bands I could point to. Mike Patton's on the phone. Come on. You didn't invent this crap. And then I guess my secondary one being like probably the popular amongst musician genre is the progressive metal thing. And the thing I keep seeing that confounds me at the same time as it makes me laugh hysterically is these guys, one, trying to pretend that they're all not just the bastard children of Meshuggah. It's like, it was a band. Let it go. But them saying that they do bop chords. Like they're doing bebop. They're doing this jazz and fusion stuff. I'm like, no. You're playing a dissonant chord once in a while to interrupt your ka-chunk. And I hate to tell you this, but also on the phone is Fate's Warning. Okay? Let's stop trying to pretend that this band didn't exist. I mean, you want to talk dark harmonies, early jazz, odd time, and instead of playing this, not even polyrhythm, just staggered, awkward rhythms that you try and say are odd time, which they're not. That tells me you don't know your music to begin with. These guys were doing the real, 13, 16, changes and bizarre harmonies and 9.5-minute songs or long epics divided into 3 tracks and things like that. And I'm just sitting here going, this isn't new. You're actually playing a simplified version of what these guys did. And let's finally get into, do we need to bring up Watchtower? I'm sorry. They out-tech the overwhelming majority of you guys. So I'm at that moment of just going, do you really not know who these bands are? Do you really think that you invented something? Or are you pulling that crap like we're probably seeing with the nu metal thing, where they're just hoping you're too young to remember that? Because again, I got copies of, Fate's Warning albums and Watchtower discs that I'm happy to mail out to any innovative prog metal artists who want to argue it. I've just noticed it lately because I've asked a lot of students and people on my channel, what are the really innovative artists, like people who are doing new stuff, and they keep sending me stuff I've heard before. And I'm going, are we just in such a soundbite culture that people just, it's so much information that you just don't know anything that happened 10 minutes ago, and if it's years ago, you're just shot. But again, like somebody was talking to me about a band I really like Gojira, and they were talking about the kind of trembar movements and adding those type of things into rhythms and stuff, and I'm going, oh, it's cool, but it's not new. And they were just stunned. They thought I was taking a dump. I'm like, no, let me introduce you to a band called Forced Entry. Try Microcosm. It's literally all this Gojira style riffing done. And it's also these prog things. Like, this isn't new. So I'm really at a confused state where I think maybe it's even a mix, that some people think they're inventing something, but it's gone on before, and unfortunately, a lot of times in better versions that live up to the hallmark a lot better. But also people who are very cynically doing that because this music, especially something like either Mordred or I just said it, Watchtower, something like that, doesn't have anywhere near the exposure that a person with a YouTube channel could just get anymore, that they just really have never heard this stuff. They don't realize that there is this immense library of innovative music that came before them, and they're just repeating that. They're not adding anything new to the dialogue, but they think they're innovators.
So you've laid it out a bit for me by saying that you've asked your subscribers and your community. So are you saying that your community have insisted that these certain bands are innovative?
Yeah.
Or are you hearing certain bands claiming they're innovative?
Well, it's a piece of both.
Okay.
Well, here's a perfect example. I was watching an interview with the guitar player and the bassist from Ginger. Mm-hmm. And the guy's playing some bass stuff, and the interviewer says, oh, so I hear a little Ryan Martin from Mudvayne in there. And he goes like, yeah. He goes, he's really innovative. Yeah, he blew the doors open with everything. And he goes, that Berber ding thing. And again, like, I'm a big fan of Ryan. I think he's fantastic. But this guy was saying, like, this guy revolutionized metal. And I went, no, I know where he got that from. It's like, this has come before. Like, how do you not know this stuff? It came from that funk metal movement and that type of thing. And not only that, but I can point to a song that's basically a more complicated version of exactly what he's doing there. He's doing 2 thumps and he's pulling a full diminished triad. Yeah. It's like, listen to the intro from Flotsam and Jetsam on the song No More Fun. Trey, who played in Prong and Flotsam, literally did that. He would hit an open note and roll diminished triads off the top of the thing. I'm like, that's literally the more complex version of the Berber ding thing that everybody does. I'm like, this is and that album came out, I think like 91. Like, this is not new. And it's not even that I'm pinning these artists for doing it. I'm kind of tapping on them a little bit on the shoulder and going, you don't seriously think you invented this, do you? And it goes into my thing about innovation, too, of people have, I've had a lot of arguments recently about how things aren't progressing and they aren't moving forward. And people are like, well, look at progressive metal. Look at all this. I'm like, I did when I was 16. Like, I've heard this before. This is not new. And again, this is where I break out into that T-Pain rant. I'm like, stop writing that song. We have that song. Fates Warning was a band.
That was a brilliant video. Rodney shared with me earlier a video of T-Pain. Is it T-Pain?
Yeah.
And you could have been him in another world, in another lifetime. It's Rodney turned up to 11, which I'm looking forward to seeing one day. That'd be quite entertaining. You're not there yet. I think you're a comfortable 3. I'm waiting for you to hit the 11.
Yeah, the doctors give me that injection every morning.
But I understand where you're coming from. I'm still trying to place this, like, I would never... It always comes back to this. I wouldn't do something. I wouldn't say I'm innovative ever. I just wouldn't do that. I'm putting it through in my head. Why would I say that? And why would I say that about someone else? And in that example you gave, I think maybe the emphasis is on more, he was innovative to me. So they're not using the right language.
So that's the thing. In the context of what he said, it was clear. He said he blew the doors open and changed the entire game of how bass was going on in metal. And I'm going, no. It may have been new to you.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's kind of like this thing of, no, it's not. Or I hear it a lot, these, progressive guitars that just are, oh, I'm doing this and it's jazz chords over this thing. It's like, no, just go ripping off a Meshuggah Chug riff and then hitting a bunch of dissonant notes with your reverb shimmer button held down. Not only has it been done, but you're not Charlie Parker. Stop it. But these are supposed to be the cutting edge sounds, though. And I just keep getting them in my feeds and things, this is the cutting edge. And I'm going like, that knife's dull. You need to look back here. Now, that was cutting edge. When you got albums like, A Lighter Shade of Gray or Parallels or, stuff like that. I mean, for God's sake, Fates Warning, I think the first time I heard him was like in 1985 or something. Like, I don't know when I heard them, but that was like their first album came out all the way back then or something. It was insane. And I'm just going, this isn't new. I'm not bagging on you for playing it, but saying that it's this revolutionary new form that's pushing the art forward. I
understand your frustration. I do. I'm just wondering 2 things. Does it hurt to say that? Listen, I understand your argument completely. We have this stuff, and yes, technically they're not breaking anything new out of the mold. I get that. But what if they are framing their view of music into a very narrow bandwidth, and they're saying, this is innovative in the past 10 years or whatever? Is that an issue?
It's not, but again, it's the dual nature of our things. I feel like you are giving a benefit of the doubt beyond benefit. Like, I would not hire you to interrogate criminals. And like I said, I'm not even saying that these people don't actually think and believe this. That's what I'm saying is I'm on a half and half thing. I don't know if it's one thing, the other thing, or a blend. That's why I figure it's a topic for discussion, is because I don't know if they honestly have never heard this stuff and they don't realize it's already happened.
But that's the other thing. Like, you can't expect every musician to listen to every piece of music. There's going to be some ignorance. I say ignorance. Ignorance, not ignorance. It is ignorance. Not ignorance by choice, but you can't listen to everything.
Sure, but I'm not asking them to listen to everything. I'm just saying they should be aware of entire genres.
Well, I would...
I'm not going to slam on you if you never, heard Testament. But not knowing thrash happened is a bit of a different story. I'm not going to piss all over you for not knowing Watchtower. but I'm going to have a problem if you don't remember the amount of progressive metal bands that came before. Like, where the hell do you think Dream Theater came from? They like, I remember progressive metal being like such an obvious statement. The Dream Theater, when they came out, seemed like, okay, these are the new kids on the block version of like Fates Warning or Watchtower. And I'm only using them over and over because I know the more obscure I get, the less, I'm going to lose most people. But, just going like, these are the more palatable versions of these much more intricate bands. And I'm going, how you figure? Like, you can't be, it's not like you woke up one day and went, I'm going to call my stuff progressive metal. And I bet no one's ever used that name before, ever. And it just occurred to me. Like, no, that came from somewhere. You were saying you're in a genre. And I realized, everybody has their tiny groups, and metal's more splintered than a stuck door at Chuck Norris's house. But it's just like, at a certain point, I have a serious doubts that somebody are utterly unaware of entire genres that came before them.
Yeah, especially if that's what you're practicing and that's what you're doing. I mean, I imagine you would throw yourself into that genre and, just be a sponge and absorb everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, like I said, I would, but I guess there are some people that don't even think that way. They're just go, I'm just going to pick up and play and not think about it.
Well, here's actually a thought that occurs to me, and put it out this way. Okay, so you've self-created this progressive genre and everything. Well, then who do you, if you've newly innovated this, who are your influences? Who do you claim? You didn't, I refuse to think somebody developed this entire genre and all its little details out of thin air. You were influenced by somebody. Who? That's why I've never seen an artist, unless, you're talking like Diamanda Galas or something like that, where they're just so out there that they have no ties or picked up pieces from other artists. And it's like, okay, well then who? Mm-hmm. You didn't just wake up one morning and go like, oh, I'm going to do clean parts here, and then I'll do this sing, and then I'll imitate the Hamburglar all the way through this part, and then I'm going to, add these jazz chords specifically, and I'll add this odd time. Like, you didn't invent all this all at once. Where did you pick this stuff up? And it's funny that I never seem to hear that.
No.
There's rarely a thing of influences. It's always, I do this. Let's not talk about this over here. Like, and that's why I get the strong feeling that it's more I'm pretending not to know. So I just find it very interesting. Like, as long as I've been listening to metal, people always talked about what they came up on. Even obscure things. Like, you mentioned Metallica earlier. Think about how long they used to talk about, like, Diamond Head.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Even the more obscure stuff like Samhain and things like that, they would go, this is what affected us, and these rare things you probably haven't heard of. And it's been very interesting to me anymore that I don't hear that. I don't hear the obscure things that people listen to that coagulated into their style. I just hear we're the cutting edge. Where did that come from? I'm sorry, I suddenly have to go now. It's like, well, so like I said, I feel like I'm giving a tremendous bit of benefit of the doubt by going, maybe you don't realize that this stuff has happened, and in massive proportion, and the songs were on MTV, and you can see them all over YouTube. The albums are still selling. But I'm having a hard time with it.
I guess on the skeptical side, maybe it's just a promotional tool. I said, we're the next whatever, and we're the new whatever. Like, it's people love the updated version. We're the new Metallica, we're the new Motorhead, we're the new Megadeth. People love that next evolution, and that gets clicks and that gets listens.
Sure.
So maybe it's some of that.
But I think that's my point, though, is they're not saying they're the new anything. They're saying we are this is new. We're the basis of, rather than the next evolution.
So they're removing the bands altogether and just saying we're new.
I went through and listened to a ton of prog metal bands. and I listen to them talk about influences and things like that. Most of them talk about each other. They're like, oh, of course, none of them want to talk about Meshuggah, even though, again, it's who 90% of them are, I can't even believe legal ripoff sometimes. But, they'll go like, oh, I grew up on Metallica, or I grew up on this, and then I wanted to get into more advanced music, and I'm using these bop chords, and I'm doing this. And it's all like, it seems like they're that too many of them try and invent this kind of like, there were tadpoles and suddenly I was a frog. It just, this genesis of something. And I'm going, you listened to Parallels, didn't you? It's like you got caught with this somewhere. And I rarely hear them talk about either an influence that goes anywhere further back than like 3 to 5 years, or the actual genesis of the style and the history of it. I'm like, if you really want to get into prog rock and metal, I mean, you do have to go back to Rush. You do have to go back to this. They never talk about any of it. It's always just like, in a weird way, it almost seems like trying to create this false sense of like, Tesla pulling lightning out of the air. Just, I woke up and my art was complete type of thing. And like I said, I think some of them, I get the feeling there may be two camps. That now that as I'm forming it, you have ones that are the more cynical, that are hiding the fact that they did do deep dives and that these genres existed way before them. And now you have, because we live in the regurgitation, climate where everything's just imitated immediately, another generation that their influence is these guys who have only been around 6 months themselves. And they honestly think, oh my God, we're doing this new genre, blah, 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 even though I'm ripping off something I just heard 10 minutes ago. But those guys took it from, way the hell back.
Yeah.
And it's just been interesting to me that I feel like there is a specific era, like 85 to 95, where the formative things of a lot of the genres we listen to, there were incredible bands doing it. And there were years of them putting out albums and, touring and shows. And it's like, it's just gone down the memory hole.
Yeah.
And like I said, I find that pretty interesting that's there, but all of a sudden we're hearing sounds from that era again. And it just makes me go like, what are you doing here? It's like I said, Morello trying to take, him trying to take credit for, nu metal and, funk metal and that type of thing. I'm like, I could name 50 bands that were doing what you do and better. Like I said, a decade ahead of time. So, no. Just not buying it.
Was Morello, I haven't seen the Morello thing, was he saying that he was bragging that because of him and Rage that they created nu metal? Was that it?
Yeah, he was saying apparently, I have to apologize. He said, we created this genre called nu metal. And I'm sitting here going like, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you in between the coughs of you patting yourself on the back. And I found it very cynical too, because he's pretending not to like it. Yes. But then also going like, aren't I so great for having invented it?
That was the same reaction I read from Tim Comerford.
Yeah. It's like, this didn't occur to you first, Sorry.
That's such a weird position to take. Like, we let Limp Bizkit loose on the world. Sorry about that. We're just so good. Like, what am I supposed to take away from that?
Yeah, like I said, I would argue if you're going for straight out sound versus sound, that Anthrax and Public Enemy had way more influence on someone like Limp Bizkit than Rage did. Because Rage was more funk and there was way more just straight metal with the Bring the Noise track. But like I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to give it up for 24/7 Spies every time. These guys have been day one innovators. They got like 74 albums or something, I don't know. But anybody that can go back and listen to, like I said, Gumbo Millennium or, Harder Than You or anything like that and tell me these are not the archetype crossover, and it's not just like rap, but like urban music, everything from soul to R&B to jazz to funk, these guys were doing it. And like this goes less into a denying your influences thing, but to me, kind of taking a bit of a poke at the progressive thing too, and the definition of it, because from the time of like progressive rock, Yes and Procol Harum and, all these other bands going through Rush and everything, that there were two things that went on. And one of them was the hyper proficient musicianship. They were always the best of the best, odd time signatures, things like that. But what I heard more in that, and what progressive meant again in that same era, 85 to 95, was that you pulled multiple genres of music together. And not just this, we use jazz chords crap. Like you would hear anything from classical to reggae to, all these other things thrown in. And not just as a gimmick, like they would integrate it into the music. The obvious example, again, being something like Faith No More. I consider them a progressive rock band. Yeah. But you had bands that I would say were on the same thing, but doing metal, like Wrathchild America. The 3D album to me is undeniably a progressive metal album. And I'm going, why is it only the technicality and the odd things that got taken over? That's the only thing that's been brought back. It's a very limited piece of it. They're not doing the integration of like, here's a classical piece in the middle of this. Even there, like you would even hear like, goofy shred bands like Paul Gilbert and Racer X and stuff like that. You would put like Paganini's Perpetual Motion in the middle of it or something like that, There was this experimentation of, we're going to add Southern rock in the middle, or we're going to do things like that. And that's kind of made me, kind of do the dog face again too of why is it that progressive only means this one thing now? Whereas before it used to mean progressive meant everything was on the table. And I feel like if that made a comeback, we'd actually maybe see some innovation again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you nailed it with the point of experimentation. They've taken the very high technical literacy, if you like, and ignored the experimentation. There's no mashing or, just throwing things together to see what happens. It's like, look how good I am. I can play really weird time signatures, but you're not smart enough to figure it out and tap your head along to, you'll get lost and, that sort of shit. And the arrogance, like, that's fine. And it's nice that you're technical and you have good ability, but it's kind of like, like when guys go to the gym and they think, oh no, I'm going to get really strong and fit and muscular. And then when they finally get buff and they go outside, no girls give a shit. All of the guys come up to the guy and say, hey, dude, nice abs. How did you get that? Like, the girls don't care. It's the guys. So it's kind of the same thing. Like, you could play really well, but only the guys would give a shit. So, I don't know, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, yeah, to me, like I said, it's not even just about audience, but it's you're calling it progressive, but you're not using all the elements that you're taking 50% of it and throwing it away. It's like, well, where is all the outside influence?
I'm laughing. I don't mean to laugh. It's funny that when we always talk.
No laughing, Alfie. This isn't funny. Talking about metal.
Okay, we're starting to get up to 9 or 10 now. We're looking for 11. I just laugh because our conversations, you and I, we've been speaking for a couple of weeks now, or, was it 10 weeks or something now? And it always comes down to the same thing where you want something a certain way and it has to be done this way and tick all of the boxes, but you're missing the point. It doesn't have to tick all of the boxes. Like this is, and I'm not just saying for progressive, they're taking the bits they enjoy and they're playing them. And we'll put a pin in the thing of it's innovative. I agree they're not. But you can't just say you have to play it this way and just like penalize them for doing it in one direction.
I never said that.
No.
You are misconstruing my argument, which you've done before as well.
Oh, I'm sure I've gone.
What I'm saying is, if you're going to claim the crown of this progressive music, that's the question I'm asking you. Why are you leaving 50% of it behind? That tells me that you're not listening to everything that came before it. You don't realize the genre you're in, and you're claiming to be innovative while actually only copying the most blatantly obvious elements of it, which is actually more a pop music approach of just taking the cliched parts of something and repeating it, and then you're going, but I'm progressive. No, you're repeating what progressive music was 40 years ago. You're not progressive. You're a reformulation of it. But there's the part of it that has far less limitation, being the mixing of genres, that could be really progressive, and I see as an open route that nobody is exploiting, but you're calling yourself progressive while not taking advantage of the one thing that would make you progressive. So yes, you do have to kind of tick a box. It's the same thing like if, there are some things that if you're going to claim to be it, you have to have some basic elements down. It's like if I went to go see a blues show and they're in there plucking banjos and playing happy stuff and bouncing around the room, I don't know the person's going to go like, all right, Rodney, you're making him tick the boxes. This is blues. This can be fine. No, it's not. It's not blues.
I understand the core of your argument, and I know where you're coming from. I don't know how to articulate it, but I don't think we need to label everything exactly, if you know what I mean. I know it helps and is useful, and I don't like it when people are saying, I'm metal, but I'm not going to play it the way that you would expect it. And we both agree, like we said before in Gatekeeping, that no, you're not metal, you're something else. You can be something else, but don't call yourself this because you're changing the meaning or lowering the bar.
I get where you're going. I feel like you're kind of circling back to my earlier thing, though, and you're not getting the full thing. I'm not even saying it's not metal or it's not progressive or it's not this. What I'm saying is you can't claim to be a genre that's creating new things while repeating something that's already happened. By definition, you're doing it. And two, it's not just progressive metal. It's groove metal, it's crossover, it's all this has happened before, and people keep acting like this didn't exist. Like what is supposed to be the hot and the new right now is 40 years old. Yeah. And I'm going, how? Like, and again, this one I will hold someone to a name, and you do have to do one thing. If you are going to say you are progressive, you have to progress. And if I can point out everything you're doing and going, not only are you not progressing, but you're not even doing in totality what was progressive 40 years ago, then you, my friend, are a liar.
Yes. So. No, I think I'm in agreement with you with that. I mean, if you're claiming to be progressive in that sense and you're not progressing, you're not. It's a false negative. I don't know. I get that, and I think maybe I'm speaking more generally in terms of other genres, but yes, in this particular example with progressive music, you kind of need to hit those particular areas. So you have talked me around to it in that sense, or made it a bit clearer.
Well, I think this one will strike you the same way. I had the same reaction kind of like when grunge was huge and like Pearl Jam, like you couldn't get away from it and everything, and they kept calling it alternative music. I'm like, it's number one. Alternative to what? Music I want to hear? What the hell are you talking about? I still remember that all the time. I would ask girls or something, be like, what kind of music you like? Oh, I like alternative. Oh, like what? Like Nirvana, Pearl Jam. Like, hey, they're selling platinum albums. This isn't an alternative to anything. Like you have to give that up once you're off college radio. You know, you gotta let that go. And that just used to kill me all the time. People would just, like, literally, you had radio stations called alternative rock stations. No, you can't have a national broadcast and call it an alternative.
That just goes against the whole idea of rock. Like, rock is the, the antagonist to society. It already is alternative music as opposed to popular music.
Yeah, right? It would be like me turning on CNN and them going, "Welcome to the Pirate News Network." What?
You're on a major national coverage channel. No. I can honestly say, hand on heart, I have never said to anybody or put it in my Facebook, MySpace profile that I've liked alternative music. I don't know what it is. I couldn't define it for you if my life depended on it. It's literally rock, metal, death metal, heavy metal, whatever, never alternative. No idea what that is. And like I said, when I started my monologue on rant, I looked at the rock and alternative list. None of them will rock, apart from Main Skin, who I think they're serviceable. I think they're okay. That's all I can say about them. They're fine. But the rest is what you would call lo-fi. And they label it independent, indie. It's not indie. It's, I can't really explain this. If you ever go to Europe, when you walk into a barber shop or certain pubs or whatever, or bars, they have a TV on in the corner and they've got their equivalent of MTV playing, which still plays music. It's called Eska in Poland. And it's like Euro dance stuff, EDM. There's a certain there's a certain component to these where you have rappy spoken lyrics with quite a melodic undersounding band. And that's just what the alternative is. Like, that's not even rock or I don't know what that's what I mean. I can't distinguish it. It's its own thing of Euro dance EDM thing, but it's not alternative. It's popular. Yeah. It's EDM or dance. It's not alternative. Like you said, to what? Alternative to what? I didn't get it.
Yeah, my point exactly. And so I would put the same thing. See, now I'm going to make you make my argument. Let's go back to progressive and go progress past what? What are you doing that hasn't happened?
But I don't know what you think I'm going to say.
Oh, no, I'm just saying it's applying that same argument. If you get the other, it's like, well, to progress means to move forward. You're playing music that I heard 40 years ago. You can't hold up that title. And I'm saying that the ultimate irony to me, especially with that genre, is when they say that, but I'm going, the 50% of what was progressive you've deleted for the most part would be the thing that would allow you to be progressive.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, I'm hammering on them, but it's part of that larger argument of I'm just kind of confounded by it, that I just see a lot of what's going on is still a repetition, but there was this meeting held where everybody's like, okay, we're going to pretend this shit didn't exist, right? All right. The rap rocks that were already into that, funk metal, gone, done. What else do we need to get rid of? We're going to get rid of like really dissonant stuff like jazzy metal chords. Done, gone. Right? But Fate's Warning and stuff, they're still on YouTube. Yeah, it's a tough one. Well, screw it. These people, they won't look it up. Like, it amazes me. And just when I see the baffled looks on people's faces when I go, no, really? And I'll play a song and I'll go like, how is this different? Mm. And you could just see the cognitive dissonance wheels turning of like, I have to find a difference. Oh, well, that has real high-pitched vocals. I'm like, okay, but you're using the same formula over and over of just getting the chick singer to front the tech band and go, again, like that Hamburglar impression and everything all the way through it. That's becoming a formula. So that's your big difference. That's what happened in 40 years. You change from a high-pitched guy to a low-pitched girl. Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's really baffled me. And again, when I hear a new genre, I keep wanting something new. And I think that's the funny thing. If people are like, oh, you only like the stuff from back then. It's like, no, I keep wanting something new. And I feel like Charlie Brown with the football. Everybody's like, oh, I got this new crazy stuff, this progressive thing. And I go up and kick it. And I'm like, this is still Watchtower. Clonk. And they pull it out from me every time. Oh, we invented funk metal. I'm like, sure. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you over Gumbo Millennium playing in the background here.
I'm in agreement with you. I want to hear new stuff, and I feel like I've been disappointed too many times where people say, "Listen to this thing," and I say, "But this sounds like something I've already heard before, but it's different." Different how? And that's what I mean. I get disappointed. So I don't disagree with your core argument that in this case progressive music isn't progressive. I just think maybe we're hanging on to our expectations of what they tell us. Like, this is just like your favorite band, but better. It's like, no. And like you said, we've heard it before, and it's not even new. It's just repeated.
Well, my expectations are when you tell me something's new, I expect to hear something I haven't heard. Sorry if that's a bridge too far, but how dare I expect new when I'm told new? But I'll have to lower my standards to apparently what is now new means in roughly the past 8 to 6 milliseconds ago. And as long as you were recently either tasered or hit in the head and suffered some kind of brain damage that you can't remember everything you grew up on.
I don't want to say this. This sounds like really, I guess, ignorant. I don't think there's much more you can do with rock music or guitar-based bands. I'm happy to be proved wrong. But every time, like I said, I keep looking out, I'm disappointed. And I do mean guitar-based bands. You look at stuff like, I sent you an article earlier. Mm-hmm. I loved it. I thought it was really good.
I didn't care for that one.
No? Okay, well...
Tremendous amount of bias on the writer's source. He's very obviously a hip-hop advocate.
Yeah, I get that. And the points I took away from it were, I think we've spoken about it before, that rock is anti-establishment, and it's kind of lost that. I can't remember what we said. It lost its, what did we call it? It lost its.
I totally agree with that, though. I think it's a neutered dog. And,
yeah.
It has to get that back, and maybe that's part of the problem.
It is.
That, you don't innovate when you're not willing to kick a wall down.
No.
And things are too polite, and is everybody happy? And you can't sit here and say that one form of music can sit around all day and talk and just say fuck bitches get paid, and then have the other guys going, is everybody feeling included right now? Are we good? Would you prefer that we modify this? And again, that may not be what you're into it, but you can't call a form of music confrontational, rebellious, anything else when you walk around on eggshells, terrified that one person on Blabbermouth might go, hey, I'm butthurt.
It's not dangerous.
Exactly.
No.
It's not. And that goes all the way back to the other show where I said that Nurgle from Behemoth was 100% dead on. He said that metal lost its rock spirit. I'm like, you're goddamn right it did.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe that's it. Maybe that's why things keep recycling, because they're trying to pretend that they're dangerous by inventing something that's already been invented and just not talking about where it came from, because they aren't going to, balls up and do something that really is obnoxious.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're kind of hitting the wall, in the sense that regardless of people say they're pushing the barrier, they're not. Like we've been discussing for the past hour, it's the same, but there's no cutting edge here. You're not offending anyone. I want to be offended. I need to feel something. Mm-hmm. Give me something to feel. Don't just... What's that? Piss on me and tell me it's raining.
Yeah. Well, I should never I should never have to sit and listen to a form of music called metal and constantly have the word milquetoast come to mind.
No.
And, and I know people, well, it doesn't have to be angry all the time. It doesn't have to be, yeah, but it doesn't have to be called metal either. Not everything with a distorted guitar is metal. ZZ Top plays with distorted guitars, for Christ's sake. But there is, when you say metal, there does come an image, an attitude, and a reputation with it. And if you don't live up to it, stop calling it that. Just say, we play heavy fusion. We play, definitions do matter. And if you're, only saying things that are, oh, I'm so rebellious, but everybody already agrees with you, and your audience is going to sit there and go, yeah. And, most of parents are going to go, yeah, When's the last time you heard that out of a rock or a metal band? Something that a kid was worried about playing for his parents.
I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
That's what we're supposed to be. The guys that make other people nervous. The only thing you make them nervous about now is they're going to waste money on a download that's going to be a complete piece of crap.
I think age is an important factor where we've had guitar-based bands, and I'm really lumping rock, general rock and metal as guitar-based bands under that umbrella. And that umbrella we've had for 60-odd years now. We've had grandparents, parents, and, the current generation who all like this stuff. Nobody is surprised. Nothing is new. They've seen it and heard it all before in some degree. Look at rap, which is kind of younger in its own way. I'd say, okay, it started out in the 70s and 80s in its variations, but it's still quite a young genre and still splintering, where metal's had its splintering era. It's still going, it's still moving forward and progressing into different things. And it still has momentum, is what I'm trying to say. Where guitar bands, they've lost their momentum. There's nowhere else for them to go.
I think they have to a certain degree, but I think it's also, culturally things. Everybody keeps talking about now, the return of rock, like Willow Smith, and she's playing guitar and doing all that. Fine. Then do something. I don't care where it comes from. Do something. I don't care what you call it. Do something. Again, back to stop writing that song. And like I said, that I found that particularly interesting, especially about progressive, that the one thing that would force you to innovate is the part that's been completely left out. That to me it's extremely telling. And also, you could take the thing of guitar rock, but you can look at our grandparents, or even great-grandparents that grew up on jazz and blues. It was still guitar music that made rock and offended them. It was still guitar music that made punk and offended the hell out of everybody. It was still guitar music that made thrash metal and bothered people, and then death metal that bothered everybody. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And it was right about that time that hip hop kind of stole the thing, because it became too safe, and people weren't willing to shake things up, and the hip hop guys were like, oh, are you dropping that shit? Because we'll pick it up. And I think even at that point, it's like, I feel like you can always tell when somebody's desperate to try and have that image, but they don't have it anymore, and they're trying to pick it up. It's like I'm seeing bands that pick up on the Satan thing again. I'm like, ooh, I'd be terrified of this if it were 88. It's such an old hat, and it's boring.
Yeah.
And now the hip hop thing, it's become more like the female rapper and the provocative sex thing. It's like, oh no, she's humping on stage. I didn't see Madonna do this when I was like fucking 2. And I can't turn on the internet here in 5 seconds and go watch 5 midgets bang 8 goats or something. It's like, this isn't this is, stop acting like this is offensive. It's a marketing ploy. It's because you're not actually offensive anymore. You just got to show more and more ass, but The kid who's listening to this has probably got it in a one tab while he's watching the other stuff. It's not offensive. It's boring. And you want to freak me out or make me think you're progressive, do your goddamn rap in a 3-piece suit and don't show me anything. That would freak me the hell out. It'd be like, where's that ass hiding? What did she do? Is it still there? That would weird me out more than anything. Or, you want to be offensive in rock or metal, talk about the stuff you talk about when the person doesn't have the camera going. That's
dangerous.
But we're not, nation of wusses.
Well, that kind of brings us on to the next conversation of what does, we say offensive and dangerous. What does that look like? I mean, it's clearly not violence. No. We're not gonna like grab you and threaten you. Mm-hmm. But what does it look like to be dangerous to a society? To say something that the majority doesn't like? Is that pushing the edge and sing about taboo topics, whatever that means now?
Absolutely. I mean, we're at a unprecedented time of censorship. And I don't hear any songs being released talking about any of the things that you'll get banned off YouTube for saying, that you'll get slammed off Facebook for saying. And not even the fact that, talking about those topics, because maybe you do agree or you endorse them or whatever, and that's fine. But the fact that people are muzzling people and the most confrontational forms of art that they're supposed to be there are going, oh, I'm sorry. I'll make sure none of that's in my music because I don't want to get taken off YouTube and not get my clicks. Or, I don't want to get off the iTunes playlist. Or I don't want to. That was the whole point of that music. And that's why I always said, stop this crap about trying to appeal to everybody. Metal was supposed to be as happy about the people that were bothered by it as it was by the people who liked it. It wasn't supposed to be for everybody. And now that they're desperately trying to do it. Now, all music, I can't think of a form of music that openly says, we want you not to like it. And that's the music I'm waiting for again. It's like I'm not so psychotic that I can't hear an opinion I differ with. And then I have to go, cry in my bathroom or some shit like that. I would appreciate hearing some lunatic going on about some weird conspiracy tinfoil shit. I don't care, just go for it. But if you're ballsy enough to do it, knowing that it's going to bother people, knowing that you're probably going to get banned off a network, knowing that, it's like the bands that used to put out albums that they knew were going to get kicked out of stores or labeled or something like that. Where are they? Now it's just so wuss. And to me, that's one of the real defining things about rock, real rock and metal is we are anti-establishment, and it doesn't get any more establishment than people trying to censor you. And when I hear these bands saying, oh, we're innovating, we're doing all that, I'm like, you're not doing shit. Yeah, I don't hear anything out of you that makes me do anything except go, what is it? I feel like I'm the South Park thing of when the kid that just keeps going, Simpson said it. And they're like, oh, don't do this, Simpson said it.
Oh, that's totally. Are you sure you didn't write that part for them? Because that's your favorite job, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're going to put these odd times things in, and we're going to use shimmer reverbs on our Fates Warning did it. And we're going to slam all these riff salad parts together and make it almost impossible to sing over. And Watchtower did it. We're going to do funk and rap and hip hop. 24/7 Spies did it. Just like, if it takes me not even a pause to name the band that was before you, you're not controversial. You're not doing anything. And you'll have to do it all the time, but just get a little taste. Just have a little taste.
How controversial are you looking? Like, are you looking at Gigi Allen, who was just unapproachable, or something a bit more?
I don't care. I don't anything. Tell me you don't like Wendy's fries. I don't care. Just anything. Just have a goddamn personality that doesn't look like it was sterilized for popular acceptance. And it's like when I see the supposed rebellion, I look at it and I go, I've seen this before. This is acceptable craziness. Like, what was the band that thankfully everybody seems to be busting ass on them? I won't name them because I don't want to give them the thing, but they were all over like Facebook and everything, and they were identical to Korn. I mean, identical. The singer had like dreads in there in a white robe, and they did exactly the early 2000s "We're Crazy" video, where they're like all tied up in the inside. I'm like, okay, if we had I've had way too much Narcan and and the psychiatrist writing out notes on them. Remember, like every new metal band had to have the crazy guys in it, and you had to look at the camera like this all the time and shit. It was exactly that, and I swear to God, you could have like played it in the background and gone, "Hey, you heard the new Korn?" And I've been like, "Sounds like their old shit." I mean, it's identical. Every instrument sounds exactly like them. The singer is identically aping Jonathan Davies. It's horrible, absolutely horrible. And I went, but see, they're doing the crazy guy thing and everything. I'm like, yeah, see, this was supposed to make people think you were nuts, that you really did have something wrong with you. But we all know that that was a shtick now. And now you're doing a shtick of the shtick. It's like, so you're trying to convince me you're edgy by just doing what we already realized wasn't really edgy a long time ago. So it's like, I don't care what your edge is, and that's the thing. It's not like I'm looking for somebody to punch me in the face. It's just give me the tiniest taste of don't give a shit. If you just came out and unapologetically did something that's not cool, because you honestly like it, not for and that's the part. It's always I feel like I'm in that ad executive meeting with what was it? Bill Hicks talked about, where he was like, they're like, "Oh, we want to get this market," and he was like, "No, we're not trying to appeal to a market. Just stop." And they're like, the anti-market market. We like that. And he's like, "No, stop!" It's like, just think for yourself for a minute. Just give me anything that doesn't feel sanitized. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to call for the, revolutionary overturning of a third world nation or something. It doesn't have to be that crazy, but anything where I just look at what you're putting across, and if it is an edgy thing at all, make it real and honest, and something that I go, you know what? They're going to get pushback for this. That, like, I can see that they're being honest enough and not giving a damn, that this is going to spark somebody. And I like that, because it isn't a special thing. I think there's a part of every personality, and we deny it a lot, but there's that little piece of us that's like, yeah, I go along to get along on things, but on this one subject, nah, fuck you. I don't bring it up at Thanksgiving, and I don't, but nah, you people are full of shit. You've always got that one thing. It's like, write that song. Finally come out and go, what? You know what? I like you guys, but you're full of shit on this one, and I'm going to say it. Is there really so little in the world, and so little in our establishments and our governments and everything else, that you have absolutely nothing to say? Really?
Everyone's got an opinion, at least one opinion.
Exactly. I don't hear it.
No.
I hear the same one over and over. It's the very safe rebellions. I'm going to watch CNN, and whatever they tell me is the rebel thing, that's what's going to go into the song. And then I'm going to have everybody tell me how amazing and bold I am and everything. It's like, no, the people who would say the opposite of that are. I may not agree with them or even like them, but they're the ones with the balls, and I'm not seeing them.
I've just been formulating in my head that it's obvious what's the right word to use? It's obvious that the importance of music has changed. I mean, we've touched on this before with audio wallpaper, and the whole degree that the mass market isn't shocked anymore by, Satan or an upside down cross on a album cover and stuff like that, or more recently, rappers with strip joints and pimps and hookers and whores and stuff, or gang violence. People are familiar and used to this. So I guess what I'm trying to formulate is that the younger generation coming up now, so like 15-year-olds who haven't seen this evolution, maybe they'll be able to push that barrier a bit. So maybe in 5 or 10 years' time, we'll have a new direction. Not now, not right now, because right now we're still living in that period.
Well, and that's what I hope, and that's why I hammer this stuff. It's not because I don't want, you know, I just want to be old man yells at cloud type of thing or something. It's the opposite. I'm going, you know, piss me off, like do something. I just thought of something that actually is one thing in that direction and how little it takes. And I loved this. Okay? Mastodon. Did you ever see the video for Motherload? No. Okay, watch this.
All right. Do you want me to do it now?
I can do it in a minute. I mean, it's a well-known video, but like here's how simple it is and the irony of it. I was just talking about how the get naked thing is stupid and the strippers. Those guys are from the South. They're from Atlanta. And their video, I mean, it's a bunch of white guy rocker dudes. They had a warehouse full of twerking strippers. Most of them not the same color as the bands, technically. And these girls are just going for it. They're doing slow motion and their asses are going everything. And I went, I know so many people that are going to have a problem with this.
Why?
Oh, well, because it was cultural appropriation and it was objectifying women of another race than you. And it was like, you know, because they put a gun to their head and all this other crap.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, they threw a thing in there, like name another rock band that's done that, that's had those girls in there to that degree. And I mean, they're going for it. And, you know, they're blatantly pulling from another culture that belongs to a different race predominantly and things like that into a music form that has nothing to do with the music it usually associates with that. And I went, I love this. It was like, I hate twerking and stuff. I feel like it's one of those things that shows like the degeneration of a civilization. Like it's somebody's going to be twerking on the hood of a car as we sink into the ocean. But I loved that thing of they just went, we grew up in the South. We know these people. This is part of what we do. And we're going to cross that barrier. That to me was culturally progressive. And they just went, we know like hip hop audiences are not going to like seeing these girls in our video. And if you're some kind of racist jackass, you're not going to like that we're, you know, bringing these black chicks in to come and do this. And all of them were black. There was a number of whites, but it was, you know, and it comes from that culture.
Yeah.
And they're not going to do it. And I went, I love that they're doing this. That they just went, I mean, there was no way they didn't think that this was going to get some commentary. And I went, they just went, screw you. I was like, like I said, I hate that type of dancing. I find it kind of gross, that type of thing. I've watched that video like 100 times. Just like, yes! Because, yeah, it was just somebody going, I don't care.
Yeah.
This is what I grew up with. These are my people. This is something we like, and you can suck it. And we're going to jam it into music you wouldn't normally find it in, and don't like it, don't watch it, go cry in your corner. And I was like, respect.
No, I love that. I love that mentality. I will watch it. Just, yeah, I'm totally on board with that. You know, and that seems, it's probably not my place to talk about Atlanta and, well, the state of Georgia. Like, I don't know much about it, but I know it's contentious with its history, to say the least.
Yeah.
So I love that idea of this doesn't bother us, but we know it bothers you. And just that idea, it doesn't bother us, but it bothers you. Make it go wide, far and wide. You know, I just want to see that notion. I love that. And I can hear what you're saying. I love that.
Yeah. And you know what? If I was offended by it, if I was like, I don't want these bitches in my video, I would still love and respect that. And that's the thing. I'm not asking for stuff I agree with. I'm asking for stuff that's honest. And I'm asking for stuff that goes, I am going to throw down and let you see the real deal here.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's all I'm asking for. And, you know, music could progress so much more if people just stop playing the sanitization game.
I just jumping on your point. Sorry to interrupt. The honesty, that was another part of an argument I was formulating. Honesty, in the sense that, again, the ages of people who listen to music have changed, and we've seen a lot of movement and where things are. And it's a stereotype that bands are exploited and don't get paid money, or, you know, the money being thrown around on music videos and albums and all of these things. And we know that current popular musicians, you know, there's a lot of money around them, and they may not see that. And we know that they're a product. Everybody knows that this is a product. Like, there's no more role models. It's like, you're a product and you're selling an album for us, the record company. So to be honest and say, this is what we really feel and we're putting it out there ourselves, I want to hear that. I don't want to see a product. I want to see something from the heart, something honest that you're not selling. And you know what I mean? Like, not a product, honesty. And that's what it is. That's the other aspect of that, I think.
Yeah, but everything's a product at the end of the day. I mean, the second you ask for money, yeah, but I mean, it's that thing. It's like, turn your art into a product. Stop trying to make a product out of your art. You know,
yes,
it's the cart before the horse.
Definitely.
You can come up with a genius marketing scheme to sell good shit. Stop coming up with a marketing scheme and then just selling shit.
Yes, yeah. No, I agree. I do.
And, but yeah, I mean, I think that's really the end thing. But yeah, that's what makes me more cynical too, about people always pretending that this stuff didn't exist. And it's like, I can't be the only one that remembers these bands. I can't be the one that keeps hearing this music all the time and going like, you got to be shit. Like, is this a remaster of that album? Or come on. It's just, it's the weirdest phenomenon. And, you know, I really get into the history of music and things like that, but I've never seen something where like a 10-year period seems to go blank, but then everybody seems to steal from it.
10 years is a long, I'm not excusing it. 10 years is a long time in music.
Sure. But people talk about what came before it. And they talk about what came after it. But there's this weird period. You know, and it's not just that, but it's like they didn't disappear everything that happened in it. It's just the things that are supposed to be new and cutting edge now suddenly got deleted from the congressional record, as it were. It's like, oh, we all know Metallica was around then. Everybody's talking about that. Guns N' Roses, all that. Oh, yeah. Nobody's aping them right now. Oh, we're doing progressive metal. We're doing rap metal. We're doing funk metal. We're doing all this other stuff. Yeah, but that already happened. Absolutely bizarre. But then again, I've always been that guy. I listen into stuff. It was like the first time I heard, I think it was Breed from Nirvana or something. I went, how is this not Kick Out the Jams from the MC5? I've heard this. Like, grunge's 60s and 70s stuff. No, it's not. It's brand new. No.
Not particularly.
No, it's not.
I think, just briefly, I think you identified another difference in the sense that all of the musicians that I'm aware of, and I mean like famous musicians that have released stuff, they all wear their influences on their sleeves. They tell you. They say who influenced them, how they got there, and most of them, the majority will say John Lennon did everything, and all that sort of thing, and you're fine. I don't hear that now. I don't hear influences. Do you know what I mean? There's no... just pulling out an example, Ozzy Osbourne idolizes John Lennon.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, if it wasn't for John Lennon, I'd still be in prison or working in a factory or whatever. And you can see he's sincere about that. There's a sincerity to him. You don't see that anymore with any artist. That, in fact, they're so confident. I haven't seen anyone say who their influences are. They're quick to dismiss it. Oh, you know, this, that. They don't tell you. And there's a lack of sincerity there. And I think that's a difference.
Yeah, to me, you only have to cover your influences if you're not making something that's different enough from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like if my mother taught me to bake and I made this amazing French restaurant, I'd be like, oh, I came up on my mom or something. But if I'm stealing her recipes and selling it out front, I'm going to be like, oh, I came up with this on my own. You know. So, again, another detective clue about motivations. You know, if you're lying about your originality, you need to more obscure where your derivatives are. Actually, I don't think anybody's had this conversation before.
You think?
No.
You're telling me that we're trendsetters, we're progressive. Is that what you're telling me, Rodney?
I mean, obviously, since we're the only podcast that talks about heavy music ever, you know, what else are people going to listen to if we go away?
I've never listened to a podcast in my life. This is I made it all up on the spot. And
there are podcasts, you know, but this is more progressive than that. You know, we're challenging with new topics. Now I'm going to do a rap.
I can't do it anymore. It's cringing me. I get stitched. I can't. Oh.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it there, and I'm sure I'll be in a waist-high pool of "go screw yourself" comments here shortly. So let me dive in. And as always, hate mail and deference, head over to Rodney McGee on YouTube, RodneyMcGee.com, and the World Wide Web in general. And the man.
And me, you can find me, Alfie Williams, on YouTube if you just type in "Which Bass," and I'll see you over there.
That's going to wrap it for this one. We'll see you next time.
See you later.